and welcome back to my blog. One paragraph didn't make it yesterday, so I'll read that and continue. Should be able to finish it. But to show another absurdity in this writ, if it should be established, I insist upon it, every person by the 14th Charles II has this power as well as the custom house officers. The words are, "It shall be lawful for any person or persons authorized," etc. What a scene does this open! Every man prompted by revenge, ill humor, or wantonness to inspect the inside of his neighbor's house may get a writ of assistance. Others will ask it from self-defense. One arbitrary exertion will provoke another until society be involved in tumult and in blood. The remainder of the speech exists only in the following summary by John Adams. I kind of wish we had the whole 5 hours. A dissertation on the rights of man in a state of nature, he asserted that every man, merely natural, was an independent sovereign, subject to no law but the law written on his heart and revealed to him by his Maker, in the constitution of his nature and the inspiration of his understanding and his conscience. His right to his life, his liberty, no created being could rightfully contest, nor was his right to his property less incontestable. The club that he had snapped from a tree, or a staff, or for defense, was his own. His bow and arrow were his own. If by a pebble he had killed a partridge or a squirrel, it was his own. No creature, man or beast, had a right to take it from him. If he had taken an eel, or a smelt, or a sculpin, it was his property. In short, he sported upon this topic with so much wit and humor, and at the same time with so much indisputable truth and reason, that he was not less entertaining than instructive. He asserted that these rights were inherent and inalienable, that they never could be surrendered or alienated but by idiots or madmen, and all the acts of idiots and lunatics were void and not obligatory by all the laws of God and man. Nor were the poor Negroes forgotten. Not a Quaker in Philadelphia or Mr. Jefferson in Virginia ever asserted the rights of Negroes in stronger terms. Young as I was, and ignorant as I was, I shuddered at the doctrine he taught. And I have all my life shuddered, and still shudder, at the consequences that may be drawn from such premises. Shall we say that the rights of masters and servants clash and can be decided only by force? I adore the idea of gradual abolitions, but who shall decide how fast or how slowly these abolitions shall be made? From individual independence he proceeded to association. If it was inconsistent with the dignity of human nature to say that men were gregarious animals, like wild geese, it surely could offend no delicacy to say that they were social animals by nature, that there were natural sympathies, and, above all, the sweet attraction of the sexes, which must soon draw them together in little groups, and by degrees in larger congregations, for mutual assistance and defense. And this must have happened before any formal covenant, by express words or signs, was concluded. When general councils and deliberations commenced, the objects could be no other than the mutual defense and security of every individual for his life, his liberty, and his property. To suppose them to have surrendered these in any other way than by equal rules and general consent was to suppose them idiots or madmen whose acts were never binding. To suppose them surprised by fraud or compelled by force into any other compact, such fraud and such force could confer no obligation. Every man had a right to trample it underfoot whenever he pleased. In short, he asserted these rights to be derived only from nature and by the author of nature, that they were inherent, inalienable, and indefeasible by any laws, pacts, contracts, covenants, or stipulations which man could devise. These principles and these rights were wrought into the English Constitution as fundamental laws, and under this head he went back to the old Saxon laws and to Magna Carta and the 50 confirmations of it in Parliament, and the executions ordained against the violators of it, and the national vengeance which had been taken on them from time to time, down to the Jameses and Charleses, and to the position of rights and the Bill of Rights and the Revolution. He asserted that the security of these rights to life, liberty, and property had been the object of all those struggles against arbitrary power, temporal and spiritual, civil and political, military and ecclesiastical, in every age. He asserted that our ancestors, as British subjects, and we, their descendants, as British subjects, were entitled to all those rights by the British Constitution, as well as by the law of nature, and our provincial character as much as any inhabitant of London, or Bristol, or any part of England, and were not to be cheated out of them by any phantom of virtual representation, or any other fiction of law or politics, or any monkish treat of deceit and hypocrisy. He then examined the acts of trade one by one and demonstrated that, if they were considered as revenue laws, they destroyed all our security of property, liberty, and life, every right of nature in the English Constitution and the Charter of the province. Here he considered the distinction between external and internal taxes, at that time a popular and commonplace distinction. But he asserted that there was no such distinction in theory or upon any principle, but necessity. The necessity that the commerce of the empire should be under one direction was obvious. The Americans had been so sensible of this necessity that they had connived at the distinction between external and internal taxes, and submitted to the acts of trade as regulations of commerce, but never as taxations or revenue laws. Nor had the British government, till now, ever dared to attempt to enforce them as taxations or revenue laws. The Navigation Act he allowed to be binding upon us because we had consented to it by our own legislature. Here he gave a history of the Navigation Act of the 1st of Charles II, a plagiarism from Oliver Cromwell. In 1675, after repeated letters and orders from the king, Governor Leverett very candidly informs His Majesty that the law had not been executed because it was thought unconstitutional, Parliament not having authority over us. And that is the end of what's available for James Otis speaking against the writs of assistance. Mostly that was John Adams writing about it. So, make it a great day. Bye for now.